We left UNESCO because UNESCO supports the Sustainable Development Goals, a globalist agenda against America first. Wow. I come from a weird place. Believe me, really, really strange. So that's a little bit of the headwinds that we face right now. But there's a silver lining.
喺睇片之前，大家記得分享、讚好同訂閱卓見名家，最緊要撳埋呢個鐘仔，咁你就唔會錯過我哋嘅最新影片。
In any event, sustainable development is not easy in academia, and it's even harder in government, because most governments implement programs. And when they're good at it, they implement them well. And the ministry implements the programs that come to that ministry. But the idea of a broad-based strategy is very difficult for governments, actually. You have to be quite good at it. One thing that you need, it turns out, is a good planning ministry, a good planning department. The U.S. doesn't have that. Planning is a dirty word in the United States. Even for Donald Trump, planning one day ahead is a luxury that we're not interested in. But we have no Ministry of Planning. We have no Ministry of Economy. We have no part of the U.S. government that has general foresight responsibilities. It's quite amazing. And honestly, I was trained to believe you don't need one. That the Soviet Union had that, we don't have that. That's why we're successful and why they're a failure. That's how we were brought up. And that's wrong. Of course, you can't plan everything. That's ridiculous. So what the Soviet system tried to do was as wrong-headed as believing in the invisible hand solving the problems. But you need a mix of planning and markets, and in the United States, we don't even have the concept at the national level of planning. Of course, lots of planning goes on. Utilities need to plan for future growth. Mayors plan for the future. But presidents, they don't need to plan. Anyway, they're emperors. They can do what they want, say what they want. No planning needed. So this is the second problem of sustainable development, that it's actually rather complicated, and you need to plan 20 or 25 years ahead in infrastructure. You have to know where you're going. And I always bring to mind Eisenhower's famous saying. Dwight Eisenhower was a great planner. He was the supreme commander of the Allied forces in Europe in World War II. He planned D-Day, the invasion of Normandy across the English Channel and so forth. And his famous expression was, plans are useless, planning is everything. And so the idea was plan and prepare to change your plan in the future, but do the planning so that you think ahead in a systematic, organized way. We need our governments to do that. What is the future of Hong Kong in 2050? What will the future sectors of the world economy be? What will the role of Hong Kong within that global economy look like? There are very few places in the world that do this. It's not easy, and you won't be right, but the exercise is enormously valuable, because you'll be right about certain things that are very, very important, and that will set the direction. Sustainable development is a new intellectual discipline, in my opinion. Not everybody agrees with me, but I've spent the last 25 years of my own academic career saying this is not only a good idea or a UN resolution, this is a way of thinking analytically. And it's a systems thinking, but the difference of many kinds of systems thinking is it's a system of systems. It's the Earth's physical systems, it's the engineered systems, it's the economic systems, it's the political systems, and it's the social dynamics. And you ought to be able to understand the interaction of all of those in the field of sustainable development. So even as a field, it's a bit of a challenge because academia did not come organized in that way. Academia came organized in biology or biochemistry or chemistry or physics or economics or politics. And this is syncretic. It's a mix across many disciplines. Of course, so is biochemistry, a mix of two disciplines that took time to evolve. This one has 5 or 6 disciplines in it. And it needs the work actively of universities to create a kind of expertise. My expertise is I know a little bit about a lot of things. I can give you a lecture about climate change as long as my climate colleague isn't bearing down my neck on every precise detail. I can give you a lecture on many of these topics up to a certain point. And then what I really know is who to call. Because that's very important. So I know the interconnections. When I call the specialists, they don't necessarily know the interconnections. So sustainable development is an interconnector field. It's a problem-solving field. It's a little bit like public health. Public health depends on medical science. It depends on environmental science. It depends on ethics because you want better health, not worse health. So it's a normative field. It's an operational field rather than typically a bench lab field and so forth. So it's a different kind of design. A third part of sustainable development that makes this quite difficult, of course, is the need for regional strategies. No place, certainly not Hong Kong by itself, but even the United States, even China, cannot have sustainable development within the national borders alone. And one basic reason is the energy system. Sustainable development requires a low-carbon energy system. That requires a high level of solar power, or wind power, or hydropower. And that is not necessarily to be collected where people live. It probably has to be transmitted from desert regions or offshore or from major river gorges and so forth, long distances. I worked with the mayor of New York, for example, over a few years to help bring Canadian hydropower from northern Ontario to New York City. And it's happening, actually, in an agreement between Quebec and the United States, and then a private company and private investments and so forth. But this is a transnational strategy. I'm working with the ASEAN governments right now to bring Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos PDR, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and the rest together in an integrated power system. Because Laos has hydropower, Singapore needs it. Okay, you better make the connections. And that's generally true of the energy transformation, that this is a long-distance bargain. It's generally true of environmental issues, such as managing riversheds, or managing fisheries, or managing tropical forests. They don't stop on a national border. And so you need multi-country cooperation to do that. But we live in a nation-state world system created by Europe in the 18th and 19th and 20th centuries. And we don't have supranational institutions that are all that effective. But we're trying. Even the European Union, you can see, is semi-dysfunctional, semi-functional. And ASEAN is, it exists. It's extremely important. It's not very strong. There isn't financing at the center. Generally, these transnational organizations don't have enforcement powers and so forth. So there are many issues of regional cooperation. But another dimension is we need global cooperation. And that is because issues like climate change, which is one of the most important issues facing humanity, even though it's constantly driven off the front page because of crises, except when you're hit by a powerful typhoon, that is a global issue. If every country had its own climate over its own head, the climate crisis would be solved. There would be a fight. Okay, exactly how much rain do we want? How warm do we want it? And so forth. But nationally, you'd solve it, and you'd say, okay, this is the climate over our head. The fact that this is what we call a uniformly mixed atmosphere, so whoever puts up the CO2, that molecule can be anywhere in the world in 30 days, uniformly mixed, means that any country affects all the world's climate, and no country affects its own climate except by a small amount. So we have the classic free riding problem, which is I will pollute because it's everyone else where the predominant damage is going to come from, and the effect on my own environment is tiny compared to the benefits of burning an extra barrel of oil or an extra ton of coal. We need global cooperation to get this done. So, what do we know 10 years into this? It's not working. It's not working because each of those needs is still largely unfulfilled. One dramatic thing has happened for the good, and that is the technologies that we have at our disposal to solve these problems are remarkably better than we could have dreamt. 3 days ago, I was in the Longji solar module factory just outside of Shanghai. Amazing, by the way. It was a multi-football field facility, huge, almost no persons in it, lots of robots, lots of machines going about their business quietly, not taking lunch breaks, not complaining about overtime or anything else, just going about their business. There were about 80 human beings. They didn't seem to have much to do inside. And they were producing a vast, vast output of solar modules, every machine with AI capacity, by the way, because they were monitoring at every step of the production process. Did the soldering go right? Are the silver conductors properly in place? Did the soldering go right? Everything. Anyway, the point is we have technologies that are unimaginably powerful. The good news, by the way, is that China has almost all of those. And China developed most of them, not invented many of them, but developed most of them by process improvement over the last 15 years so that they are the low-cost production site by far. And your next-door neighbor, Shenzhen, has a lot of that. And that's wonderful, too. So, we have the solutions if you analyze what is really needed for the energy transformation or sustainable agriculture or sustainable fisheries or managing the rainforests. We even have ways to make people richer through all of these technologies. The question, though, is it going to be one gazillionaire, or is it going to be wealth well shared across the society? That's still the unmet challenge of the social justice component in this. That's not a simple issue. If we had hours to talk, I'd love to talk about that. But the fact that there were no workers in that plant is not incidental to that reality, because advanced manufacturing is not really a human activity past the design stage and the machine stage. It is all automated now, and AI is going to accelerate all of that. So we have a real issue of jobs, an issue of training, an issue of income distribution, but a world of complete, amazing abundance if we use this right. Those solar cells are now 8 cents a watt. 35 years ago, it was about $100 a watt. It's 8 cents a watt now, thanks to what China has done. Okay, so what do? I have to start with a 1-minute weird story, because this is our reality right now, and we need to understand it. 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, the United States left UNESCO. UN Education, Science, and Cultural Organization. Trump didn't recognize any of those words, unfortunately. So there was just no compatibility. Culture? What's that? Education? I'm against it. Science? Fake news. Okay, so anyway, we left UNESCO. When we left UNESCO, the US statement said, we left UNESCO, and believe this, this is so weird what I'm about to say. You have to look it up online to see that I'm telling the truth, because otherwise you'll say he's exaggerating. We left UNESCO because UNESCO supports the Sustainable Development Goals, a globalist agenda against America first. Wow. I come from a weird place. Believe me, really, really strange. So that's a little bit of the headwinds that we face right now. But there's a silver lining. The United States left UNESCO, so UNESCO will have nice, quiet meetings in favor of the Sustainable Development Goals. In early July, I was at the Financing for Development Summit in Spain. The United States alone of all the UN member states didn't participate. It was a nice, quiet session. Nobody complained. The US has left the Paris Climate Agreement. Fine. The other 195 signatories can get on with it. It's not quite so simple because the US is still emitting a lot. It's going to have to come through. But the truth of the matter is we're not going to have unanimity in the world. It is not worth our scarce time to convince the United States to do otherwise right now, at least at the level of the Oval Office. The US is filled with wonderful people, and it's filled with excellent institutions, and it's going to take a little bit of time for normalcy to return to our political structures at the federal level. But we don't have time at the global level to address these issues. And my basic belief is that the rest of the world has to get on with it, not to have a battle with the United States, because I don't think it's worth it, and I think it's dangerous, but rather to say, we go on for our planet, we expect you to return. I wouldn't mind if someone keeps a tally of everything the US owes that it's not paying, so that there's a bill at the end of this little bit of self-imposed isolation that you should have been doing the following along the way, and now we'd like you to re-enter with some responsibility. But I do believe, and just coming to a conclusion, I do believe that China has a unique role to play. It is by far the world's largest industrial nation in the world. It is by far the lowest cost producer of every advanced green and digital technology that the world needs. And in the solar factory that I saw, there is not full utilization because Longji and other solar companies in China could produce roughly twice the output that they're producing right now. And it's a pretty cutthroat competition. The prices of the modules are way down. They're each producing they're improving their production processes, driving costs down even farther. A very fine person and my teacher in 1973 made a very wrong statement. Janet Yellen, as U.S. Treasury Secretary, she taught me macroeconomics, and I can assure you she's a wonderful person. She said China has overcapacity. This is completely wrong. China has the capacity that the world needs for transformation. And one of our main goals, in my view, is for China to export twice what it's exporting in solar power, to double the rate of solar installations, and to do that in the Sahel of Africa, to do that in the deserts of Central Asia, to do that in the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula, to do that in Mongolia and elsewhere, and to interconnect that wonderful high intensity, high quality insulation at very low cost with the world energy grid. So I take the opposite view. Don't cut back on production. Let's double the production at least. Now here comes Hong Kong. I want you guys to do that. Make the deals, provide the financing, be the bridge that connects the world, make Hong Kong truly the world's green financial center for the whole world, so that when every government comes to think, what should I do, they know they're going to be selling bonds here, or they're going to be borrowing, or they're going to be listing on the exchange, or they're going to be finding partners here. And this is truly the vocation for Hong Kong. And that's why I started by saying that Hong Kong will play absolutely a unique leadership role in achieving sustainable development. And we will achieve it. Thank you very much.
中意名家分析，記得俾 like 同埋分享，支持同訂閱卓見名家，最緊要撳埋呢個鐘仔，咁就唔會錯過我哋嘅新片。